Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of Wicked Mysterious. I'm your host, Katie.
And I'm Danie, and this is episode
Number 7.
Lucky number 7.
Yep.
What do you have for us today?
I have a very, very interesting topic about the hollow moon. That's right. Our moon, our beautiful moon, hollow.
We're getting mooned this week.
I went down the moon hole. So yeah, all right, here we go, guys. So we've always been told that our moon has always existed since the dawn of time, but there's actually evidence that dates far back in our history that in fact there was not always a moon in our sky. Every ancient culture has a story about the moon, but the further you go back in time, the fewer stories of the moon actually exist.
I did not know that.
Really? So you had no idea at all that the moon, like there was stories in the past without the moon?
No.
Me either, until I fell upon this theory. So pretty cool. I actually thought this was going to be just a wicked, whacked out theory, but there is so much scientific evidence. Yeah, that it's just like, how could it not be hollow? I wish I could do a good hollow impersonation. Is that the word? A hollow impression.
How do you be?
I wish I could do a good hollow impression.
You could just ring.
That's exactly what the moon did. That's exactly what the moon did. Okay, so we'll get into it. So this is going back to like Aristotle, okay? He talked about people called the Proselynes who lived in Arcadia, which is in the mountainous central Greece, long before the coming of the Greeks, and their story suggesting a sky before the moon arrived. The Greek term proselyne means before the moon, and like their name suggests, they claim to have been there before there was a moon in the heavens. In Tibetan texts, there are stories of people on a lost continent called Gondwana, and it's said to be civilized before the moon shone in the sky. Pretty neat. Yeah, pretty neat. I wish I could just go to the library and pick up these scriptures, you know?
Oh, Gondwana.
Yeah, about all these.
They're right next to Atlantis.
There's been Bolivian symbols that were interpreted by a Dr. Pepper. That'd be awesome if that was really his name. But by a Dr. P. Allen, as records that a satellite had come into orbit around the Earth about 11,500 to 13,000 years ago. So pretty recent. Mm-hmm. The Zulu tribe of Africa's shaman, Credo Mutwa, explained the legend of a reptilian race that stole the moon and hollowed it out so that they could oversee Earth from a headquarters in order to control human race. And this ended the golden age on our planet and led us down a devastating path.
Legend, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, it's the Zulu tribe's legend. They're a very prominent tribe in history.
Slightly off topic, but did you see, I think I sent it to you, there's those AI art apps.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And somebody asked it, I don't know if it's true, if this is real, but somebody asked it who runs the earth, and it was
that's
all
right.
these different like politicians, and they all had reptilian skin.
That's what I was going to say, reptilian. I remember that now that you sent me that.
Yeah,
that's so
it was
weird.
like Mark Zuckerberg and a bunch of other people.
All the big money
Putin.
people.
Yeah.
Wicked cool that it had reptilian skin. But yeah, so for those that don't know, the Golden Age is a Greek mythological age. It's marking the first period of humanity. So like a period before the moon. But it's basically stages of human existence. And the golden age is the first age. And I know there's like, I think the age we're in right now is like iron or something like that. I should probably look that up. But I know there's like obviously different stages, and the second is like silver or something like that. Okay. The Sumerian legend has similarities to the Zulu tribe of the Anunnaki, which are two extraterrestrial brother gods who are named Enlil and Enki, and they were believed to have created mankind. So the Sumerians and the Zulu tribe both have a similar, legend of extraterrestrials creating mankind involving the moon, because the Sumerian legend also believes that the Anunnaki are responsible for bringing the moon into orbit as well.
Weird.
Yeah, so the coming of the moon was said to have taken all of the dense condensation in the Earth's atmosphere out, causing the water vapor to fall, ultimately causing a global flood catastrophe that cultures all around the world talk about in perfect alignment, in sync. It's like that global flood, that big flood, that like even in the Bible,
from the Bible,
it's like every culture has that same flood for the end of that time. So what's so strange about our moon? Well, science has not been able to explain how it's formed, its structure, its density, its very unusual too perfect orbit, and its stance from Earth. There's several scientific theories around how it could have formed. There's the captured theory, where scientists believe the moon was just floating along and it got sucked into the Earth's orbit. There's the accretion theory, where it's believed that the moon and Earth formed out of dust clouds together in the early solar system. However, when systems form through accretion, they would share the same traits, and the moon and the Earth are very, very different. If the moon formed through accretion, it would have an iron core, like the Earth most likely, and spin on an axis, like the Earth. Fission hypothesis says that early Earth was spinning so fast that the moon was formed out of rock in the Pacific Ocean that was flung into space. But we learned that moon rock is actually much older than the bottom of the ocean. So I'm not sure how likely that would be.
Yeah, that sounds strange.
Yeah, very strange hypothesis. That's why it's just a hypothesis. And the most popular theory is the Great Impact theory, which you're probably familiar with this theory, where a very large object supposedly smashed into Earth, and the debris field from that collision came together and created the Earth-Moon system. But the conditions would have to be just so perfect for this to happen. So perfect. So it also seems unlikely to me. I'm no scientist. The most recent theory is that a large object the size of Mars collided with Earth 4.5 billion years ago, vaporizing it into what we call synestia, and spinning so rapidly, forming a torus, and the moon forms on the edge of this torus. In geometry, if you revolve a circle around an axis in 3D space, it's called a torus. So those are like the theories of how the moon came to be in our orbit, because we know it always has not been there, Moon rock samples that were collected from moon missions came back even more perplexing. Samples proved very different from what we know about Earth's rock. On Earth, the rock on surface is newer, and the rock gets older as you go deeper. Makes sense, right? The opposite said for the moon. Soil on surface is older than the soil underneath, and same for the rocks. When we drill into our Earth to mine, we bring older rocks to the surface. If the moon was hollowed out, then this could explain why older rock and soil are on top. Hollowed out moon. I'm going with it. Typical structures have denser materials towards the core and lighter towards the surface. On the moon, it is reversed, and we can't explain why. The moon's surface is marked by impacts from asteroids over billions of years, yet they all have the same uniformity when it comes to its age, their ages, and their depths. That's crazy. Why? Why would they all have the same depth if these have been impacting the moon for billions of years? Like, that there's a uniformity in them. That's
Are they
not
the
normal.
same size crater or just the same depth?
The sizes of them range,
but still
vary, but the depths are the same. Yeah.
It's so weird.
That's weird. That's really weird.
Question, with the age of the rock, they must be carbon dating it or something.
I have no clue how they test ages of rocks.
How would
I was
that even
thinking the
be
same.
possible?
What, figuring out how old it is?
No, that I understand. They do carbon dating and stuff for that, but how is it possible that the stuff on the surface is older?
Right. That's what.
So weird.
That's why it fits into the theory that it was dug into and hollowed out.
Okay.
Crazy. Okay. So, chemistry makeup of lunar dust is really weird, having different chemical makeup of the rocks all around it. So the lunar dust on the moon, totally different chemical makeup. Why? Doesn't make any sense. Why would the dust have a different, it should have the same exact chemical makeup of all that surrounding rock and debris. Like, that just doesn't make sense. If it is the result of years of impacts, why wouldn't they be made up of the same shit? That's what I wrote. It's true. It's a good thing to think about. The moon has zero magnetic field, yet the moon rocks collected were strongly magnetized. The Earth is said to be 4.6 billion years old, but the oldest rocks we have found are much younger. Moon rocks are older, much older, some dating back to the beginning of the solar system.
Is that because the moon doesn't have weather or anything like that?
It's supposed to have like zero
precipitation. Environmental factors.
No, yes. Atmosphere. It has zero atmosphere.
Could it be because the Earth, there's so much, I don't know, weatherization, or I don't even.
That it's so much different.
There's so much weather, and
we're told it's a dead planet. Like, it's a cold, dead planet with no activity and no life that we know of. But I think there's definitely more to it.
Maybe our oldest rocks were destroyed already. And maybe the moon has older rocks because
I feel like our oldest rocks are coming from deep, real deep, like mining deep. But apparently, our rocks being the oldest they can find, 4.6 billion years old, and the rocks are on the moon are older. That's crazy. Uranium-236 was found on the moon, and this is a radioactive element that doesn't occur naturally on Earth. Titanium, chromium, and zirconium are rare on Earth and are found in large abundance on the moon. If the moon and Earth were formed together, why such drastic differences in their makeup? Those metals are some of the strongest materials ever known to exist and highly resistant to corrosion, being great for reinforcing structures. Perhaps a hollow moon structure. Maybe this could explain why the meteor markings all seem to share the same depth, unable to penetrate through a very enforcing and resistive metal protectant outer layer, maybe?
I don't know if you're going to get into it, but are you going to talk about that maybe previous civilizations on Earth attempted to blow up the moon, or the craters are from us?
No, I wasn't going to get to that theory.
Isn't that interesting to think about?
Yeah. So we tried to blow it up, which honestly we have done in NASA. They have blown things into the Earth, into the moon. Blown things into the Earth. Sorry, NASA. No, but they literally have done these tests where they are launching shit into the moon. So, I mean, we probably left a crater, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We had to have. Absolutely, there's a crater up there from us. At least a few. The moon is 25% of the size of the Earth, but 1% of the Earth's density.
What's 25? I thought it was so much smaller. I thought it was like 10%.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I think our perception of the moon is just, it's hard because it varies, we see it so tiny, we see it bigger, but there is some like strange coincidences with the measurements between just like the moon and Earth and the sun and Earth and stuff. So
is it exactly 25%?
Yeah, that's what I got. The moon's 25% of the Earth, but 1% of the Earth's density, which is insane. That's just crazy.
Because it's hollow.
Yeah. This sort of density indicates that the moon may not have a core. The moon is more like a planet than a moon. 1/4 the Earth's size, no other planet has a moon this large in our solar system, or ever found in any other solar systems. Also, the moon is much more close than it should be. It's the only object in space with a nearly perfect circular orbit. This near-perfect orbit and its size and distance from the Earth and the Moon appears in the sky as almost the exact same size as our Sun. This is what allows eclipses. Our distance to the Sun is 400 times our distance to the Moon, and the size of the Sun is 400 times the size of the Moon. Coincidence?
I think not. It's those reptilians again.
Very industrious. So, November 20th, 1969, Apollo 12 returned to their command ship and launched the lunar module to crash back down into the moon to see what would happen. The crash site was 40 miles away from where the astronauts left their seismic devices. The equipment recorded the moon ringing like a bell for almost 40 whole minutes. What do you got to say about that?
So this is under the assumption that we actually did go to the moon?
Correct, yes, which I am going to get to as well. Obviously, this whole theory is all depending on whether or not you really believe that we went to the moon. Yes, correct. So, again, the equipment recorded it ringing like a bell for 40 whole minutes. The vibration took about 8 minutes to reach a peak, and then it began to diminish in intensity.
So what did they crash into it?
So they took their lunar module from their, part of their ship, and they allowed it to crash back down into the moon. They were trying to see what was going to happen.
Why would they?
They were trying to test, I think, whether or not the moon, what happened? Did it reverberate, which it did for a very long time, and the Earth does for a very, very short amount of time. So maybe they were just trying to test the theory of the hollowness, because the hollow theory it began back in 1970.
I wonder what made them think that it was hollow because of the density. How do they test the density of the moon, I wonder?
2 Soviet scientists are the first ones to come up with the theory that the moon was hollow, basically just based off of the scientific facts of how unlike the other planets and how weird it is in our solar system. It's just not normal. It's just not
interesting.
normal.
So I don't know, it sounds like something a bunch of little boys would do. We're just gonna crash this and just see what happens. Just see. Right?
And what I was thinking the first time that I was researching this was, what if it just blew up the whole damn moon when they tried this, you know? They didn't know what was going to happen.
If it went straight through, imagine.
Yeah, right?
The reptilians are oh, don't look at us. They can see us now.
Be taken back over Earth if they were ever here before.
They already have.
Yeah, it's true. So after that 40-minute recording of the moon ringing like a bell, the vibration, or I should say not after, but while it was happening, the vibration took 8 minutes to reach the peak, and then it began to diminish. So for a whole 8 minutes, it was going still, to that middle center, which is crazy. The ringing experiment was recreated by Apollo 13 by striking the lunar surface with the equivalent of 11 tons of TNT. Now, that was the one that I was what if this moon just literally just incinerated?
No, if it was hot, so what happened? What happened when they did that?
So once they did that, according to NASA, this time the moon acted like it was a gong. Seismic equipment was 108 miles away from the crash site, yet it still recorded reverberations that lasted for 3 hours and 20 minutes. 3 hours and 20 minutes. That is holy Jeebus.
So now, how many tons was it?
This was to the equivalent on the Apollo 13 of 11 tons of TNT.
11 tons of TNT. So if
smashing into the moon.
11 tons of TNT.
That's serious shit. That's a risk right there.
So if it is hollow, right? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't smashing, what if it cracked open an egg? Or
that's the thing. They were taking that risk. They didn't know. But if that is a protective layer and it's not allowing anything to penetrate through, it did its job really good.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, with this one, where it was reverberating for 3 hours and 20 minutes, it actually traveled to a depth of 20 to 25 miles. The reverberations traveled to a depth that deep.
Okay.
Studies after of man-made crashes yielded similar results. One impact reverberated for 4 hours. Reverberations do not occur on Earth for more than just a few minutes due to the Earth's density. On March 13th, 1972, a large meteorite struck the moon with an equivalent of 200 tons of TNT. After sending shock waves deep into the interior of the moon, scientists were baffled that none of it returned, concerning the idea that there is something very unusual about the moon's core. Now, scientists will tell us that these reverberations are because the moon is much less dense and the moon rock has much less water. So these reverberations last longer and farther. But this can't be proven. Isaac Asimov, a Russian professor of biochemistry, also questions how the moon came to be, since it is 2,160 miles in diameter, while by laws of logic it should only be 30 miles in relation to the diameter of our planet. So from 30 to 2,160 miles.
Compared to other moons.
Correct. Orbiting other planets, yes. Robin Brett, a NASA scientist, also agrees, stating it would be easier to explain the non-existence of the moon than to explain its existence.
Yeah, I just got really freaked out thinking about that.
Yeah.
How much we just take it for granted that it's just the moon and it's just there.
And even as like kids, I feel like I always appreciated the moon and like the sun and the sunset and the stars more than my friends and like people around me.
Yeah.
And I think as kids, we do appreciate the sky more than we ever do in our life. Like we lay out on our backs and look at the clouds and imagine like what's out there and try to see things. And, we really like don't take it for granted when we're kids, but we do. We just walk out and we don't even think that we're on a planet right now just spinning around.
I do every day.
Like I do too.
That's why we're
I'll be driving down and I'm like, just like, wow, we're like floating in space right now. But a lot of people definitely don't think that at all.
Yeah. So they're saying that it makes more sense for us to not have a moon than it.
Yep. To explain the non-existence of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy that they can't explain our moon, but they can explain other moons in the solar system. That's crazy. Why can't they explain ours? So we know this big, beautiful moon has a huge influence on this planet, right? Like we know this.
BBM.
Scientist Dr. Maggie Adarin Pocock states that if it weren't for our moon, we would not have 24-hour days. Billions of years ago, the Earth spun so fast that a day is said to have only lasted 5 hours. Those are quick days. It's very stressful thinking about that. Like, when do you sleep? Seriously. The gravitational pull of the moon slowed the Earth down and changed the tides of our oceans, which I find just so fascinating that the moon does have such a gravitational pull on us. Like we always have known that without the moon, it wouldn't be on its axis at the right tilt, which even just a little bit of a tilt difference could make a drastic difference in, our seasons and even like the ice age.
Our bodies too.
Well, that's next. Yeah. Definitely with the gravitational pull on the tides, creating the tides, they didn't have that before. Billions of years ago, the Earth was just like calm waters and just condensation supposedly everywhere. Very foggy. Just a horrible fast life. 5-hour days, like horrible.
5-hour days and no waves at all.
And this is the golden age. So the gravitational pull of the moon slowed the Earth down and changed the tides of our oceans. Pocock also explored that the moon has influence on our psyche as humans. Which we definitely know. Roman's moon goddess Luna, which prefixes used for terms like lunatic or lunacy. This theory coincides with the Transylvania effect, which is the effect of a full moon's presence causing humans to act wild, crazy, and violent. And you can ask any doctor or nurse.
Yep. We were just talking about that at Thanksgiving.
Even I'm sure, nursing homes, schools. I'm sure even the teachers in schools can tell when it's a full moon.
My cousin did security at St. Anne's.
Oh, so that's a great job to talk about that.
Yeah, he was just saying that the other day.
It does make so much sense, though. It really does. Aristotle believed in the lunar effect and said that similarly to its effects on the Earth's tides, the moon can have a profound effect on the brain as it's the moistest organ in the body.
Whoa, interesting. I never thought of that before.
Me either until this. Considering we as humans are made up of mostly water, it would only make sense that the moon has an effect on us. I got
So is it there to
chills.
control us?
I'm getting to that, girl. Ironically, average menstruating cycle for a woman is 28 days,
Yep.
and the moon cycle phase is very similar.
I always thought that was so strange.
Yeah, right? Some studies have proposed a link and also suggested that women are highest fertile when the moon is in the position that it was at her birth, which is another mind-blowing thing to think about. Yeah. Yeah. So when you're born as a human being, female in the world, or whatever you want to be, you are, when the moon is in its whatever phase, when you're most fertile in that same phase that you were born in. Yeah. That's so cool.
Well, that's also could have something to do with the fact that your grandmother actually carries you.
True.
Because
True. Yeah, it could go back that far.
women are born with all the eggs that they'll ever have.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yeah.
to think about that, your maternal grandmother actually carried you.
Right. That is just crazy.
Right?
Here I am, Grandma.
I'm not a scientist, Grammy, but I can pretend like I am one on the radio.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so even some nocturnal animal species, they become highly active and fertile during the full moons. This is a really cool theory. It's believed that our brain's pineal gland could be considered our third eye, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, which gave our ancestors back in the golden age a higher sense of consciousness and helped them perceive reality far out of the physical sphere. Some people believe it has been shut down by the moon in most of us, affecting our sense of time and making us think in terms of 24 hours and in lower levels of consciousness. Interesting. That little gland.
What's the connection between the moon and the pineal gland?
This is just as a theory that some people have brought up, that they think that the third eye has been shut down, like that our ancestors had this usage before the golden age, and since the moon has come into orbit, it's shut it down in us.
Yeah. Well, supposedly the aliens, whatever race, pick a race, have changed our DNA.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
I believe I'm part alien. I have that alien blood type, which we'll go over in another episode.
Yeah. I still don't know if I have it.
You need to find out, because I can't be your friend if you're not an alien with me. Okay.
Maybe I'm a different kind of alien.
I really always stayed at the moon and felt like that was home.
Yeah.
I just felt like that was home. I wanted to be with my reptilians.
Home is not here, but I don't want to live on the moon either. It's boring and blank and gray.
Yeah, no. Well, it's a little more not as boring.
Hollow.
And hollow. But I think it's a little not as boring as we think. I really do. We'll get into that too. So could NASA be withholding info about the moon? Yeah. Yes. Well, you and I already both talked about how we're not 100% sure if it even happened, the landings even happened. But for this theory, we do have to assume that they did happen, for them to have been collecting all this evidence. I guess they could have still done the testing without stepping foot on the moon. So, I guess in theory, we don't have to necessarily 100% believe that they stepped foot on the moon, right? But we know that they have gone into the moon's orbit and done this testing anyway. Shooting tons at the moon and hoping that it bursts or some crazy shit.
Well, if we've been there, why haven't we been back?
No, it's been 50 years. We'll get to that too. So the Apollo 11 crew. Okay, so back to this, okay? So I know you watched the press conference, right? The Apollo 11 press conference when they were back and they were making their statements about the mission. It was mainly Neil Armstrong talking, but
was it the one where he was talking to the little girl?
No.
All right,
So this one it's a long press conference, but they're just not right. Those three guys, they either look like they saw something out there that changed their whole world and life, or they just got reamed and threatened by NASA and the government to not speak about any of it at the press conference, because whatever it is, they just weren't right. They looked very sad. They looked almost traumatized, honestly. There was no happiness in them.
Well, they say that.
It's an exhausting mission, I'm sure.
There's asthenia.
Jet lag.
Yeah, asthenia. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's the abnormal physical weakness or lack of energy. But they say that a lot of astronauts, when they're in space and they can look down at Earth, have like an extremely surreal like moment of like a break in their psyche.
Right. It makes sense.
Can you imagine?
No, I can't at all. Like, how surreal.
But that being said, I 100% believe that they were threatened. I'm sure. I think, wasn't there like a 3-minute like time where they weren't recording live and they said like,
there was something in one of those press conferences that there was, I remember that, like it was omitted. But they just stepped on the moon, and this should be the biggest, happiest accomplishment that they're back. I know they had to like quarantine for a little bit to make sure that they didn't, bring any space germs home. But for the press conference, it's just like, I would have expected smiles at least and happiness to be like, we did it. We're here. And they literally just were not right at all. From what I got anyway, from what I gathered. And one of them, which I can't think of which one right now. Buzz Aldrin, he went on to have like a really serious nervous breakdown after they got back. And I know that they were all sworn to secrecy, but what went on in that mission?
And there was an interview with, I don't remember if it was Buzz Aldrin or Neil Armstrong, but one of them was asked by a little girl why we haven't gone back to the moon. And I wish I could find the quote, but his answer was basically like, because we didn't go.
Wow.
In so many words.
I would love to see that quote.
Yeah, I'll find it on YouTube and I'll insert it here.
Okay.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen. So in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going. Money is a good thing. If you want to buy new things, new rockets, instead of keep doing the same thing over, then it's going to cost more money. And other things need more money too. So having achieved what the president wanted us to do, and then what thousands, millions of people in America, and millions of people around the world. You know, when we toured around the world after we came back, the most fascinating observation was signs that said, we did it. Not just us, not just America, but we, the world, different countries. They felt like they were part of what we were able to do. And that made us feel very good.
Slightly off topic, but
no, really cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
But he had a nervous breakdown. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, Buzz did. Yeah. So they looked, they definitely said that when they landed on the moon, supposedly they said anyway, that something shook them up, but they've been sworn to secrecy of their accounts of that. So there's no more. So we're told the moon is a dead, cold world with no atmosphere. But since Aristotle days, there have been many reports of many unusual sightings and activity. In March of 1971, 100 square miles of water vapor appeared hovering over the moon and lasted 14 hours. So for a moon that's supposed to have no atmosphere at all, they were able to see water vapor hovering over for 14 hours. That's just totally unexplainable. How and why? I don't know. So many questions. Many strange lights have been reported. NASA reported during 1940 to 1967, 570 unexplained light flashings. These have continued into today and happen so frequently that we refer to them as TLP, transient lunar phenomena. So,
I've never even heard of that.
So I guess if we get ourselves a really awesome telescope, we could sit out here and we could watch for some TLPs.
I have a little telescope.
I think we need a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a big one. Other strange reportings and photographs by astronomers, probes, and even astronauts themselves have revealed various artificial objects, towers several miles high, pyramids, and other symmetrical structures on the moon.
I remember the pyramids, yeah.
Carl Wolf, a U.S. Air Force tech, recalls a photo that he saw that showed a clear base on the moon and added that he was excited for NASA to release this incredible proof to the media. And to his surprise, it was not shared at all. And now that photo existence has been erased. So a clear base. So I don't know what that could mean. Just like a building that would be a home base is what he's insinuating. I don't know.
I picture like a military base.
Yeah.
Like roads
Like a
and
clear base.
roads and buildings.
Well,
and
roads were definitely observed on the surface of the moon at one point. Scientists say that structures on the moon can be explained by shadows or optical illusions, and that the lights could be meteor reflections of glassy patches on the moon's surface.
Okay.
These anomalies can be explained, sure, but none are perfect. We don't know anything about our Earth's center. I mean, we don't know enough about it. Never mind our moons. So none of those explanations are certain that they give us. I'm not buying them all, you know. Why did the U.S. quit landing on the moon in December 1972? Was all scientific questions answered? There's so much more to explore. Why was Armstrong sworn to secrecy, and why did Buzz Aldrin have a nervous breakdown after the mission? Dr. Stephen Greer, ufologist. Dr. Stephen Greer, ufologist and founder of the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, believes NASA is withholding info about the landing from the public. Dr. Greer collected eyewitness testimonies from numerous government and military officials, sharing personal stories of encounters with extraterrestrial life forms in his disclosed documentary, Sirius. And that's spelled Sirius. He makes claims that Neil, along with Apollo 11 crew, saw the moon being crowded with alien spaceships and was told not to disclose the info. So since 1972, and now in November of 2022, we're launching robots into space. Did you know that our current launch right now has mannequins, they're called? Yeah. They're calling them mannequins. And we currently have 3 mannequins aboard Artemis 1. The mannequins' names are Moonikin, Zoar, and Helga, along with a stuffed Snoopy. And they're aboard the mission. Currently, they want to basically see what the radiation has effects on astronauts. It's like, would have been nice to have
After
this.
they sent people there.
Right. Would have been nice to have this done before. But yeah, the stuffed Snoopy is the classic Charles Schultz Snoopy, little stuffy. Snoopy has actually been tied to the moon missions since 1969, when the lunar module of Apollo 10 was nicknamed Snoopy because of its role scouting or snooping around a landing site for the Apollo 11 mission.
Imagine the aliens finding this and being like,
I would
"What
love
the
that.
fuck?
Yeah, I would
Helga?
love that. Helga and Snoopy.
Are these people okay?
This time, Snoopy will serve as a zero-gravity indicator to show the team on the ground when the spacecraft reaches weightlessness. So, Danie, I have to ask you, with the moon's perfect geometric symmetry, its astronaut testimonies, and our scientific discoveries in ancient history, all pointing to one logical conclusion, that our moon is most likely a hollowed-out structure, an artificial satellite intentionally placed here only a few 100,000 years ago to influence the Earth's biology and also to control, what would you say?
I have questions.
So, if these aliens are so smart and they're like a whole,
Reptilian civilization.
and they're obviously an intelligent life form, wouldn't they know that we can see them with telescopes? And wouldn't they know that, like, oh shit, our base is like open and available for viewing from Earth?
Yeah, they probably know, and they probably don't care. I think going back into time also, like back into the Sumerians and the Zulu, they have so much documented of aliens, extraterrestrial aliens coming down to Earth and creating mankind and starting everything to do with human civilization. They probably taught us everything that we know and, made our pyramids.
So what's inside the moon then?
It's a hollowed out spaceship. So that's a good point. I'm glad you just brought up, because as I told you earlier, I didn't want to forget to make this note. The very first time that this whole bizarre theory of the moon actually being a hollow spacecraft, because that is like a theory, it came from two Russian scientists in July of 1970. Michael Vassin and Alexander Sherbakov. They published an article in the Soviet journal back then called "Is the Moon a Creation of Alien Intelligence?" So these Soviet scientists, they put forward the belief that the moon is not a completely natural world, but a planetoid hollowed out eons ago in the far reaches of space. Huge machines were used to melt rock and form large cavities within the moon, spewing the molten refuse onto the surface. Protected by a hull-like inner shell, plus a reconstructed outer shell of metallic rocky junk, this gigantic craft was steered through the cosmos and finally parked in orbit around our Earth. There's actually like photos, if you look up like hollow moon, like what they believe it looks like inside, and it basically is like something out of Star Trek. It's like different layers and levels.
Death Star.
It's cool to look at, to imagine that actually could be something. And then also you have to think about like the dark side of the moon, how we don't really know much about that, and how the dark side of the moon never faces us, because the moon does orbit, but one complete revolve is equal to the whole distance of our one complete Earth's revolving. So the face never moves. You know what I mean? Like it's just always facing the backside, because when it goes to make its whole spin, that's super interesting. There could be a huge door that opens and all these spacecraft just come in and out on the backside of the moon, for all we know. We've seen pictures supposedly of the backside of the moon, and it looks just like the rest of the moon. It is bizarre. It really makes you think. But yeah, it definitely is one of those far-fetched, I'll agree, one of those far-fetched things, especially when I already was skeptical about the moon landing in general. This was hard at first for me to grasp, but I do not think that that scientists or NASA would lie about things like the moon ringing or being like a gong, because why would they want to make us, why wouldn't they just want us to think the moon?
Maybe they released the information and then realized what that means, and then they were like, "Oh shit!"
What information released? Sorry.
That it rang like a bell.
Oh yeah, but like, why would they release it if they didn't know that? Like, why would they release it if they didn't have findings for that? Because that's just going to make people have questions. They don't want people to have questions. Right. So, but then it leads you to like, why would they tell you at all? Why would they release the results? Unless they were just as shocked to find this out with us, and then they sent missions afterwards and they did find out more things.
I don't know. I don't think we ever went to the moon.
Yeah.
That's just my gut. I don't know why, but
yeah. I mean, there's lots and lots of talk about it being
we would have
done
gone
in
back
a studio,
like a bunch of times,
unless there was something threatening or something wrong out there.
Yeah.
Like they found it and now they have the answers, and they're not telling us the answers, but they're keeping the astronauts safe. It's like, why are they sending mannequins now?
Well, they're both still alive, right?
Buzz and Neil, I believe, are.
One of them, it said
one of
was
those
92.
passed.
One of them died?
I think so. I think there's only 4 left total now, of all the astronauts that landed. I'm pretty sure. I think that info was on
Wonder
my
if
computer.
it'll be like a deathbed confession.
That'd be cool. And how, and you know, and would we ever experience it? You know, would we ever get to?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna find out in our lifetime. Maybe not all the answers, but we're definitely gonna. They're gonna fake an alien invasion for one.
I'm sure.
But I think eventually the tides will turn. If the pun.
There's
as far as like what our government is going to release to us, and I think they are going to eventually be forced to tell us because enough people are going to want to know. Enough people aren't going to be scared.
Yeah.
I'm not scared anymore.
I'm not scared at all. Like the moon could be full of reptilians and I'm not scared.
They're already like we already have reptilians here
among us. Yeah. We have friends that look like aliens.
Yeah, we do. Who?
Me. I don't look like an alien.
I think I do.
I don't. No, you don't.
My nightmare eyes.
Such beautiful nightmare eyes. All right, guys. I think that we're going to call it here, but let us know what you think about the hollow moon theory. You got to be open-minded for this one. This is a tough one, but it is filled with a lot of scientific evidence that the moon is not normal. Okay. So just keep that in mind. The moon is definitely unique in many, many ways and nothing like Earth. And it's kind of just plopped there to
it's nothing like, more importantly,
us.
It's nothing like other moons.
Right. Nothing like other moons. And our scientists can't explain our moon. So like those are the things that I hold on to that make me say, wicked mysterious. All right, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this. I haven't gotten a lot of sleep in the past 2 weeks, so my brain is definitely not working on full speed. So I do apologize. Thanks. Hopefully, that's why Danie did the last episode because I needed some recovery time. But she's a beast. She's already ready for her next one, and we're ready to give it to you. So thanks for listening. Stay mysterious.